Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. I left off in part one, or rather in part one, I was discussing mulch, and I failed to complete the thought, so here it is. I was saying that you could make your own mulch, but it's time consuming. So what I went ahead and did was I bought a small bag of potting soil plus mulch for like $2 or something at the Family Dollar store. So the point here is, yeah, you can make your own, but you can also buy it fairly cheaply. And I want to talk. This time in this video, I want to give you an overview of the entire container gardening process, all the steps along the way. But first, I want to talk about mulch versus potting soil versus normal soil, outdoor soil, versus compost, because they're all important. But let's start with mulch. What the hell is mulch? Well, mulch is organic matter, but it's not humus. Humus is partially decayed organic matter that you find in rich soils, and you especially find it abundantly in potting soil. So it's organic matter, and what it is, it's finely shredded bark, finely shredded peat moss, finely shredded leaves, things like that, mixed together. But it's not partially decayed. It's not humus yet. It can become humus, and it doesn't hurt for it to become humus, partially decayed organic matter. But the reason you need mulch is because when you put a plant in a container and you water it, gravity pulls that water down to the bottom. And if you have a large container, you need to retain some of that water up higher. Well, that's what mulch does. Potting soil. Potting soil is simply soil with a lot of organic matter in it and a lot of humus, partially decayed organic matter. And that's important because when it's partially decayed, it releases nutrients to the plants rather slowly. All right, normal soil. Everyone knows what soil is, and most people call it dirt. We all know what it is, but here's what you may not know. A soil that's good for crops should have this composition in it. It should be 45% minerals, 5% organic matter, 25% water, and 25% air. It's important that soils are aerated. They have to be kind of loose, not compacted real hard. You squeeze all the air out when you do that, and those roots need air to get oxygen to grow. So let's see, compost, that's the last one. You all know what compost is. Compost is much like humus. It's partially decayed organic matter. And, if you want to go to the trouble of making your own compost, hey, kudos to you. That's a good thing. But you don't have to do that. And if you do it, you don't have to do it in a huge, humongous bin out back somewhere. You can do it in smaller containers. You can make a compost in a 5-gallon bucket and then use it sparingly in your containers. So I guess the point of the story here is that you want to use a potting soil and mulch mix for your container gardening. That's, to me, the best approach. And if you want to add some compost, that's great. That helps too. And If you even want to put a layer in the bottom of your final home for your plant, the largest container, if you want to put a layer of just natural soil in the bottom, I don't think that's going to hurt anything as long as you're careful as to where you get that natural soil. For example, you don't want to be too close to a road when you get it, because maybe the county sprays herbicides and along the roadsides, and you get drift of that crap over, onto the land adjacent. So just make sure you use potting soil and mulch. All right, now let's get into some more containers. And while I'm describing or showing those containers, I'll describe the overall process. I told you last time about a germinating tray. Now, eventually, of course, after they sprout up, you want to take those little seedlings out of that tray. You have to transplant them into a larger container. But you don't want to put them into a 5-gallon bucket. That's not the first step. That's no good, because the little roots on the seedlings aren't going to be very long, maybe that long. And the water, even with mulch in it, is going to be pulled down to the bottom. You'll have to be watering constantly. So here's one little seedling cup you can use. It's just a normal plastic cup. You just poke some holes in the bottom, and I've got a smaller coffee canister lid here that I use for secondary containment, or catching excess drainage. And you'll notice there's a little cardboard roll in there. That's a portion of the inner roll of a paper towel roll. I got this idea from YouTube. You can also use a toilet tissue roll. Just cut it in half. And this really helps out, because it makes it easier to transplant, the next step in particular. And this thing contributes organic matter to the soil eventually. So that's another container you can use. Here's another one. That one was store-bought, obviously, but those are pretty cheap. Here's another one. Grape jelly jar. I just cut off the top of it, poked some holes in the bottom. I don't know if you can see them or not. They're along the edge of the bottom. Just fill that up with a potting soil mulch mix and transplant your seedling into that. Here's another one. Oh, by the way, I showed you that already. Okay. By the way, another seedling pot would be an old coffee cup. This one is paper, or non-corrugated cardboard, I guess you'd say. And I just poked some holes in the bottom. I guess you can see those. And I'm using an old peanut butter jar lid for the secondary containment, or catching excess drainage. I'm an ex-hazmat guy, so I keep calling it secondary containment. Here's another one. If you have a somewhat larger seedling, I showed you a bigger coffee canister last time. Well, this is a small one. This is I can't even read this here. I think it says 10.3 ounces. 10 ounces. Just poke some holes in the bottom again. I found this lid. I have a bunch of kitchen stuff that I got at a thrift store. Used, but who cares for this purpose. I just use this lid as the the tray to catch the excess drainage from this one. So there's another container that you can make on your own if you have a small coffee canister. Here's another one. I've got the toilet roll cardboard insert right here. I showed you a water bottle last time for watering plants, a full water bottle. Well, here's one where you cut it kind of up toward the top and, you know, poke your holes in the bottom. I don't think I poked holes in this one yet. But anyway, there it is. Everyone has these water bottles around the house. Well, make a seed pot or a seedling pot out of it. Take it out of your germinating tray, plunk it in there, let it grow a while, then transplant it to a bigger container. Here's an example of a bigger container, a milk carton. And I left the top on. See how I did that? I just cut it around the top but left the handle intact. And you can bend this handle back to keep that open, or you can put it down like this to get kind of a mini greenhouse effect with ventilation. You can mash it down and it'll stay lower. But that's a good idea for a coffee, for a transplant pot. And I used a coffee lid here, canister lid for the catch basin. Now, eventually you're going to want to get to a larger container. Here's an example of one that's kind of unique. This thing was a large jug, sort of cat litter that I found somewhere, and I just cut out one side. You know, it's an upright container like this, but I just cut out one of the sides, and I put some mulch and potting soil in there. And I'm going to use this maybe for strawberry seeds. And then for secondary containment, I found this old lid to some kind of a tub, plastic tub, and just put that underneath to catch the excess drainage. So that one was you might say, a found item, or an item that I didn't have to pay any more for. I already paid for it when I bought the litter. All right, here's another one. These, by the way, are my sunberries, or some people call them wonder berries. I'll be transplanting these out of here into separate containers, because they're about a 2-foot shrub, so I can't have them all in this container. But what this is, these are two plastic containers that nest into each other. And the only reason I'm using the outer one for secondary containment is because I haven't found a tray for the the one inside. My biggest problem has been finding trays to catch the excess drainage. But once I get a tray for the inner one, then I'll be able to use this outer one and look for a tray for it. So that's another container idea. And then we have the simplest idea for a bigger container. You know, you want to go from this, the grape jelly jar, or this tiny small coffee canister. You want to go from that into a larger container, such as this one, just a pail. This is, I think it's a 2.5 gallon pail. Or, depending on the plant, a 5-gallon bucket. Now I've got a 5-gallon bucket over there, but it's full of soil, but there's nothing else in it. Excuse me. So I didn't want to drag it over here. You all know what a 5-gallon bucket looks like. This is the top half of a milk carton, and the bottom half can be used as a seedling pot. Just punch holes in the bottom, find a tray to put underneath it, and then the top half can be used in a larger container like this pail or bucket as a mini greenhouse type thing. Just take the lid off so you don't overheat your plant and kill it. So that's another idea. And then, in addition, here's, man, that's heavy. Here's another pail. This one's 2.5 gallons, I believe. And I've got a couple of strawberry plants in there. Excuse me, tomato plants. I'm kind of tired. A couple of tomato plants in there. And I'm using a plastic tub here for secondary containment until I find an appropriate, tray for the excess drainage. And then I'll be using this tub for planting something like garlic cloves. Just stick them in the soil and you're ready to go. Oh man, that's heavy. And let's see what else. Very quickly. Oh my God, it's 17 minutes already. Magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt. Get yourself a little squeeze bottle. You can even use a used up saline solution for sensitive eyes. It's a bottle about this size, maybe a little bigger in circumference. And put about 4 pinches of Epsom salts in this thing. Shake it up, and then apply it to your plants. In particular, tomatoes. Tomatoes love magnesium, and that's the best way to get it. All right. What else? I think that's about it. The idea here is you start out germinating your seeds, and then you go into a small cup. I'm not going to show you how to transplant because there are dozens of videos on YouTube here on how to transplant. And they're all very good. I've watched them all. Well, most of them anyway. But I will give you some tips in the next clip. This is an ongoing series here. I'll give you some tips on transplanting. Transplanting is probably the scariest part to beginners, at least. And really, there's nothing to it. Plants are very, very resilient. As long as you don't break the stem, you're not going to hurt the plant. And roots are especially regenerative. So don't worry about hurting the roots when you transplant. But we'll get into that next time and some other hints. And I'll give you an update on, I'm looking to see if I missed something here. I'll give you an update on how my plants are doing. They're doing very well, very well. I have, I don't know, about 30 plants going right now. They're mostly tomatoes, some strawberries. What else? Oh, sunberries, wonderberries. And I just planted some garlic. So until next time, be well, and thanks for dropping in. Now let me get this thing turned off. It's a puzzle to a no tech person. Okay, be well. See you next time.